Well, Graham, I know there was a pretty big announcement at ProveIt this year regarding Sesame and their new platform. Is it a platform? Would you call it a platform?
It it's a standard API
Okay.
for products to interface together.
Okay, so for those people maybe like me who were in that room, heard the announcement, or maybe for the people who weren't in the room and have seen the announcement but really don't understand what this means, explain it to us. How is this a big deal? It seems like a very important thing. And so kind of explain it to us why this is important.
Yeah. So I think it's a very exciting release. Very excited to be involved with it, and maybe just a quick shout out. So the Sesame team have released i3X API. Very briefly, what it is, it's a way for us to get vendors to get their software to talk to each other in a standard way. And it is type safe. And I think that's one of the big things. We've had many mechanisms where we can talk to each other. We've got REST APIs, but this is now effectively a REST API that encapsulates typing and allows us to just plug pieces of software together, which is really great for our industry. The working group, which the gauntlet was laid out by Matthew Paris this time last year. Shout out to him for driving that. Sesame picked it up and drove it. Shout out to Jonathan Wise and the API working group, guys like Travis Cox, Aaron Semley. They really have put in a lot of time and effort into this, and it's really
And
great.
you as well.
I had a very small part to play in it, very small, and really only got into it at the end when we were invited to contribute and showcase what we could do with Timebase Historian. So absolutely, thank you to them for that opportunity. And we've baked it into the product now, even though it is in a beta or even an alpha format, and it will break and it will change. We're right there. We're going to keep it up to date. It's baked into the product. Very, very pleased about that.
Okay, so you're going to walk us through just a very brief, quick demonstration on how to even kind of get started. So I'm going to turn it over to you and just
Perfect.
let you run.
Yeah, so I think I really just wanted to quickly show people how to get started with i3X Explorer. It is kind of the front end tool. Think of it like MQTT Explorer, but for i3X. To do that, I'm going to start with Ignition. I'm not going to go into any detail. I'm going to go into Ignition. I'm going to enable our Timebase module. It's going to start pumping tag history across to a Timebase Historian, and then we're going to connect the i3X Explorer onto Timebase and and then I'll take you through a bit of a demo of that. Cool. So before I start there, a couple of things. If you want to go and replicate this to everyone who's watching, go to timebase.com. You want to go and either download the Windows Explorer. If I go to the documentation link, there are two quick starts here, which I would recommend people follow. So depending on your flavor, you're either going to go for a Windows installer and get set up that way with Timebase Historian, or you are going to go to Docker Hub and you're going to pull the latest release of the different components. So those two articles, choose one of those and follow those, and you'll get to an installed and running Timebase Historian. So that will then look like, here I have just the administrative UI for the Timebase Historian, and at the moment it's empty. There's absolutely nothing in it, right? It's just an empty shell. Then you're going to want to go and get yourself the i3X Explorer. So you're going to go to acetechnologies.net, i3X, and there's a little bit of information about it here. But if you want to download and get going. That'll take you to a number of images that you can go and download. I'm running on Windows, so I'm running this version over here. And I'm going to show you that shortly. But let's go back a few steps. Let's go and enable our history. I've got a couple of tags. It's obviously a very small system, but let's enable historization of the Timebase Historian module. Okay, and then that's enabled. It's going to start pumping data across. If I do a refresh here, you'll see I've got my Ignition default data set that's been created. I can see that there are a couple of writes per second coming in from Ignition. If I go into that data set, I can see the tags. There are only a couple of tags, 9 tags that are actually being historized right now. You can see the last known value. I can go and edit the metadata of these tags, etc. I can select all if I want to, or select a couple and edit all of them. So a little bit of functionality. I can obviously use a filtering mechanism. If I've got hundreds of thousands of tags in this data set, I can go and use filtering to find the tags that I'm looking for. Let's jump over to the API. So from this administrative UI, you always have access directly into the API documentation. This is our standard API, where you can configure the historian, you can configure data sets, you can configure tags, you can then obviously write data and read data directly into and out of the historian. Something that probably hasn't been highlighted yet, but with our latest release, we also have a streaming endpoint. So you can actually hook onto tags, you can subscribe to tags, and you will get that data streaming in as the data changes. But more than that, we've also got a streaming endpoint for the tag definition or the tag metadata. So if the tag's metadata, maybe it's unit of measure, or you add and you update the description or something like that, that change you can actually subscribe to those changes as well. So think of kind of dynamic apps that you can build on top of this API. It's pretty cool. All right. If I come up to the top here, you'll notice that you can select a different API definition. So version 1 is the standard Timebase Historian API, but you'll notice that we have the i3X, which is a parallel API wrapper around the historian. So if I go into that one, you'll see that it follows the same endpoints as are described in the i3X standard. The explore endpoints, where you can get information about the object types, about the objects themselves. You've got the query endpoints, which is split into 2, one to get the last known value, and one to get history over a period of time. And then the last set of endpoints here is the ability to subscribe. And that subscription uses a similar mechanism to our subscription stream, but you can also do polling. So that's quite an interesting concept. So with that, what we're going to now do is we're going to go back to i3X Explorer, and we're going to connect it to the Timebase Historian using this API. And I guess to highlight here, any tool, any client tool that makes use of the i3X API will be able to connect to Timebase Historian or any other vendor that serves their data through an IPX API like HighByte, like Ignition. And after the announcement last week, there are a whole lot more vendors that are wanting to be able to conform to the standard for us to all talk to each other. I think it's fantastic. Okay, so let's jump into i3X Explorer. Again, think of this as a little bit like the MQTT Explorer. What we're going to do is we're going to connect into our historian, and at the moment I'm just running it locally on my machine. So there's the URL. Most of the vendors are incorporating this i3X endpoint as the entry point into their API. So I think that's just useful to note. I hit the connect button. It's going to go out to that endpoint. It's going to then know what to look for because it's a standard API. It's going to find the namespaces. So we'll have a Timebase Historian namespace that gets pulled up, different types of objects. So for example, we have a tag object, and now this is just standard JSON schema. It's a standard way to describe a type. And then all the different objects that belong to that type. And so if we jump into the hierarchical view, you can see at the top level, we have that data set object type that contains a number of tags. If I had multiple data sets in my historian, you would see multiple top level objects in the hierarchy. If I click on that, I'm going to then see a folder structure plus any tags that belong to that data set directly. So that don't belong to a folder within it, but are attached to it directly. So a lot of these are actually our system tags for that data set. So if I come into dataset rights as a tag, you'll notice that over here, I get the last known value. At the moment, this is not auto-updating. I can obviously refresh that, and you'll see as I refresh it, new values come in. I also then have a history, a window of history. Now, this defaults at the moment, it defaults to an hour. We only started historizing in the last couple of minutes, so we don't have a lot of history there. But I think it's self-explanatory for everyone. As you have history there, you're gonna see the data coming in. And then the last thing that I want to just show is the subscription mechanism, which is really cool. I can go and subscribe to that data point. And as those data points update, this is by exception, they come into the stream. There is also the polling mechanism. So if I stop that and I do the polling mechanism, basically all that does is it buffers those data points on the server side, in the historian side, and then every couple of seconds, it will go and refresh and bring in a whole number of points. So that's how that works. Cool. And that's pretty much it. So just a quick way to show people how to get into i3X. We are definitely going to be making changes to it. The working group's going to continue working on it. There are a couple of things that have already been identified as things that we want to look at. And with that, the vendors that are already baking it into their products are going to be updating it. So, but I think we're going to get there quickly, and I'm very excited about it.